All right, to get your hazard and central locking switch out, you'll want to pull up on your shifter grommet, move the window switches out of the way by removing these two screws there, and then just slide that up or unplug it and remove it. At that point, you should be able to lift up on the dash, and you should be able to reach in there with your fingers or maybe a plastic pry tool or something just to unclip these tabs. You just have to depress them and it should slide up. If you need more room, come to the back, open this compartment, pop this ashtray out. Down in here, you'll have 2 push pins like that. Remove both of them, and then this assembly slides out. There's a light attached to that. You don't have to unplug it unless you really want to take it apart. Then you got 2 screws there, 1 on each side, and they're the same screws as the ones at the front, just like that. At that point, this whole rear end will lift up, which will help you lift the front as well more. It does require 2 hands to lift it all up, and then you'll be able to slide your fingers in and press these tabs and lift this out. And then just unplug it and you're ready to go. To disassemble this one, it's just 4 clips. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easiest way, just, again, screwdriver, pop one side, reach in, pop the other. It should just start sliding itself out. You can reach in on the other side and help it as well. And there it is. Keep in mind the orientation of the switch. It just kind of gives you an idea of which way they go. So the plan for me is, these look like 5mm LEDs. Well, this is an LED. This one here is an incandescent bulb. Now you can remove it by twisting this guy out, and that'll drop the assembly out, which I believe that's probably what I will be doing. I'm going to drop this assembly out, take this one out, and replace it with a PLCC 2 bulb, or LED, that is. And same with this one. This one is soldered on. Let me see here. If we just get this guy up. Small light persuasion there. Detaches it from the back cover. So anyway, to remove this guy, you have to desolder these 2 pins there, and that'll slide this assembly off. So very likely what I'll do, as I don't think I'll be putting these 5mm back in, I'll just probably do like I have been doing everything else and put the PLCC 2 lights in. It'll just be easy because they're readily available for me. But more than likely we'll just cut this little plastic down a bit just to expose the bottom of this LED. We're going to snip this LED off and then just solder right on top. With this guy here, probably do the same thing. Just give this a little nip and tuck here. Remove this bulb and just solder to the legs that are already in there. So let me look over this for a minute and jump back in. One thing to note here, if you take a flashlight, preferably a white one, just shine it through the switch. That'll kind of give you an idea of what color the switch already illuminates. So since the hazard switch already illuminates red, we'll put a white LED behind it so that doesn't come out pink after it's all said and done. I guess due to the nature of where the switch sits, real close to those cup holders, if the previous owner of your vehicle or maybe even you yourself happen to drink something sticky and spill it, you'll notice that this switch collected a lot of it. So there's a lot of dirt in here, right on the face there, inside these little crevices. So, I noticed a little bit here on the inside, right there, a little bit of sticky. I don't know what it is. The previous owner must have spilled something. So either way, to disassemble that, there's little hooks. Again, just 4 clips, just like the bottom half was. Hook in here and lift. That should start disassembling the switch. This is while it's out and you're doing this, good idea just to clean it up and get it ready for a nice new look. This one's being a bit of a pain. Let me get just a smaller driver here. Come on, baby. There it is. All right. So all this, we'll just take a rag and some alcohol and we'll clean it up. Let's see what else is holding this guy on. Can't really tell. But this should be good enough because that's kind of where most of the nastiness is right around the outside. I shouldn't have to disassemble it any further. I don't see what is holding this guy in right now. Sometimes the securement is not so obvious, and I'd hate to just pry around and break it, as this one, I'm not seeing the securement points on these switches, so I guess I'd imagine they probably are kind of just snapped on. I kind of felt like a little pop. Yeah, I think that probably it. There it is. That's the worst part, I guess, when you can't visibly see something. You don't want to destroy it. But it appears that is the way. All right. So there's that switch. And then this comes out the bottom. So very good. We'll be able to disassemble this completely and clean it up. So there's that for you if you're interested in cleaning your switches up. Just go very lightly around it, pry up. There is, so what I can see from here, there is, again, 4 small little clips on this bigger hazard switch. I'd imagine there's probably at least 2 to 4 on this smaller door lock switch. Ah, okay, well, there's my mistake. It appears I may have broken mine. This one, man, this one wasn't as easy to remove. This has clips on the sides that are inside the assembly. So I'm not really sure how you would have removed this any other way. So I guess for this guy, as you can see, there's a clip there and clip on this side. But while it's way deep down in this assembly, as you can see, you have no access to those clips at all. So unfortunately, probably what I'll end up doing, I'll just replace this assembly now instead of cleaning it. So don't make that mistake. Now, if you do make the same mistake as I did there and already broke your switch before you see this video, the elegant solution, or not so elegant solution, I guess, is to just reposition the plastic tabs back in their place and just put a tiny dab of super glue on it. This should really keep it working still, but it'll at least last through the end of the project and just kind of see the final results. More than likely, I'll still replace it just for peace of mind for future, but this should hold considering how little action this switch really does get and how little function it serves. I mean, other than to click down, it doesn't really support any weight, you know, so it should last just fine even in this state. So something to consider. So if you did end up breaking yours, like I was saying, a little super glue will help. As you can see, once it's clipped back in, it works just fine. Once you're done cleaning these pieces up, you can just set them aside. Obviously, you're not going to need these anymore until we come back to the reassembly portion. We'll go straight back over to the actual board now. I think I'll start with this big guy first. The easy one, I think, is this one here. Just do a quarter twist rotation and just slide it out. And then, I mean, that's it pretty much for this guy. We'll just take a little bit of this plastic out and then we'll put a different bulb in. The thing about incandescent bulbs is that they light both directions. Obviously, they're not polarity sensitive. And I don't know which one of these is power or ground, which side of this half circle here is power, which one's ground. It really doesn't matter, I guess. You can always go plug this back into the car, put it in one way. If it doesn't work, flip it 180 degrees, turn it in again, and it should work fine that time around. Just following the traces based on this resistor here, typically goes on the positive side of the LED. So as far as this one goes, this leg here should be positive. But again, when you desolder this and you remove the assembly up, you can test the legs just on the bench. And then you can follow the traces down and just kind of judge which one should be positive based on that. And that'll help you a little bit. But again, the easiest way is just socket this guy back in. If it doesn't work, flip it 180 degrees and it'll work the second time around. If it doesn't, then you have a bad solder joint, obviously. But so we'll start by desoldering this guy and we'll go from there. So there we are. This is removed. Pretty simple. As it sits in there, it's got these clips on the side. Easy way to do it, just to grab some small pliers to compress the tabs on the side as they clip into these little holes there. And then heat up each of the pins and just kind of slowly, as you wiggle it around, heat up one side, just kind of give it a small little tug. When you see the solder flow, you just give this just a small little tweak, let it solidify, heat the other pin, you see it flow, you tweak it the other way, and just kind of slowly walk it out of the holes. It helps if you just use some solder wick to remove a majority of it, but whatever doesn't come, it's just easy to just kind of walk this LED out of there. Now when you're to this point, you can test the LED itself. Just slide it up out of its holder and touch each of the legs. So it's not that direction. Hard to tell, but it is on there. So let me see if I can just do it in here. A little bit easier to see. Not that this really matters. This is mostly just for demonstration purposes, but this is kind of how you want to install your new one. So there you go. You should be able to see if that turns on or off. Either way, so the idea behind it is now you see where it's seats. You can pull this up and you see there's a seat right there. What we'll do is we'll remove these hips pretty much that kind of encompass the sides of the LED. That way it will no longer have these sides. And then we will flush cut this LED and just place just a regular SMD on top of there and solder it to the legs. If you watched the window switch version of this, it's pretty much the same concept. The window switch is just a smaller LED versus this 5mm in this one. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, I guess that kind of goes flying, so maybe just kind of place a finger over top so it doesn't on the next one. So there you go. Some flush cut snips actually work really well. So as you can see, that's flat now. We're going to insert the LED in here, just slightly raised up. We're going to just put a dab of solder there just to keep the legs in place. And again, there is the much simpler way to do this would be just to get a replacement 5mm LED, desolder these, pull it out, stick a new one in, solder them back up, done deal. I just like to have a, I guess, consistent lighting basis. So I'm using the same LED in every place that I can possibly use. That'll help with the illumination to be exactly the same on every single area. Whether that's, at least that's a theory behind it. Whether that's accurate or not, I'm not really sure. But we'll find out. Okay, that looks like it's in there now. I'll give it just another touch here just to be on the sure side. All right, that should be plenty. All right, so this is now soldered in. This LED is solid. Now with the flush cuts, just go in there and just right up against the head of this LED, snip both sides off. There you go. All right, that's soldered in. Legs are completely soldered back in. It's on its stand. It's got a small little offset here, only because from the solder you can't jam it all the way down in the holes, which is good in case you do need to make some adjustments, or if you want to replace it later on, if you don't maybe like the color. Either way to test is to just apply some power across the pins. Now, the idea here is to not apply power directly on the LED. You want to apply power, say, let's see here, which, so I think this is yeah, so this switch's leg would be a negative, and this would be a positive, so there you go, there's some power. So I'm just applying power on the resistor here, and applying a negative on the actual switch in front of it on that leg there. So it does work. Next order of business will be this guy here. The easiest way to do this, if you want to go the easy route instead of doing it the more complicated way that I'm doing, this thing is just routed through here with some thin metal, or these legs, I guess, of the bulb. The absolute easiest way is to get these bulbs. This, I think, is a T5 Neo, something like that. You can order these on eBay or anywhere where you get your LEDs. Just get this assembly with an LED already installed, or just unwrap the legs down here from the terminals, and then you just grab any LED. So say you just grab an LED like that, you stick it in to the holes there, and then you just fish the legs around, wrap it around these little areas, trim off the excess, insert it in there, done deal. I'm gonna do it a little different, only because I want to use another one of these LEDs in there. So I'm gonna cut down to these holes where it's flush, and then after that, oh, that kind of launched, didn't it? Best to keep your finger over it, as it will kind of fly away as it snips. So now we're pretty much flush down here. What I'll do is the same concept. I'll stick an LED in there, wrap the terminals, I'll leave a little excess off the top, and then the same as this one here, I'll snip the actual LED off the top of it and solder one of these on top, and that'll be it. Insert it back and try it out. I really can't emphasize enough how steady hands go a really long way here. And I'm making this a lot harder on myself because I really have some shaky hands. But it's in there, it works. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. You'll definitely see me struggle on that time lapse with such small areas and not being able to keep your hand upright against it, it really just kind of, I guess, sucks having to deal with hands that are all over the place. So I did wrap these partially just to kind of keep the legs steady up top while I'm soldering, so they don't kind of fall back through the holes. Once you're done though, you just wrap them all the way around. Into all the little spaces here. And then we'll trim off the excess. So the completed job would look something like this. The thing I did not mention, and I figured this out the hard way, is you need a resistor on this one, as this contact flows full 10 volts across it, and 10 volts will pop these LEDs. When I first plugged it into the car, I noticed it wasn't hardly illuminating, and then I thought to myself, well, there was an incandescent bulb before, so I'm sure it's flowing full power at it. And I measured it with a multimeter, and it was 10 volts across the contacts. So I added this resistor here. So the resistor measures in at 400 some odd ohms, I believe. Let's take a look here again. So 470 ohms. And essentially what that assembly looks like is just this, a resistor to the LED that pretty much just brings the voltage down. And when plugged into power, let's see if I can set this up where you can see it. So the current, we got 3 volts when you add this resistor in, which is how much it takes to power these LEDs up. So essentially that's all that we have done in here to get the incandescent replacement down to 3 volts from the 10 volts, 10 to 12 volts that it powers it from. I did mark these as well. So looking at this from this angle, or this direction, I guess, the positive terminal would be here, and the negative is there. So essentially, when you saw me wrap this around, I just added this resistor in there and wrapped it around this leg on the positive side. So that lights this switch up now in white. All right, so sometimes you gotta go to the extremes to figure out how to fix a problem. So I went ahead and I ordered a brand new switch. This one is a brand new BMW genuine switch. Then I ordered a aftermarket Febby Bilstein switch. This is my own switch from my car. And I went to the scrapyard and I grabbed a couple other switches. This one being an OEM one, and in this one I found an aftermarket switch, no branding. The issue I encountered is regardless of the light you shine through this, they do light up a warm white. And so I'll show you that. I'm gonna drop some lights here and turn on this flashlight, so get ready for that. I might blind you for a second. So let's see here. Might be a little tough to tell on camera, but this is an OEM switch. This one lights up a warm white color. It's tough to not blow the camera out. Here, hang on a second, see if I can bring the brightness down, maybe right about there. So there's the warm white. There's this is the Febby Bilstein one, but the quality on it is trashed, really. It does light up white, which is good, but it might be hard to tell there. But there are some marks here from their production. The switch doesn't illuminate correctly. There's some dead light spots in there. You can't get the whole switch to illuminate properly. Let me see if I can bring these side by side. Maybe able to tell better. You see how this one is fully lit up. Get this one here, like at the corner of the window, has a black spot. Right at the end of the key here has a black spot. Has a couple other black spots back here at the back of the window. Again, kind of tough to capture with camera, but when you're looking at this with your eyes, it's a stark difference. And so anybody buying a new switch, I can tell you that new OEM switches will always light up a warm white color. The new Febby switches illuminate like garbage. This is my OEM switch, also a warm white. And then another one I found at the scrapyard, OEM switch, also a warm white. And then the aftermarket switch, this one lights up a nice bright white, doesn't have any dead spots, but the actual switch itself has a smooth kind of finish to it. So for example, comparing these two here, maybe kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can bring the brightness back up. All right, so you see how this one's kind of wrinkle finish, and this one is extremely smooth. And unfortunately, this switch doesn't match anything in the interior. I mean, I don't know, I guess this is just really being picky about it. But, you know, I would not put that in because of the way it looks. I have tried sanding the surface on one of them just to see if that'll make a difference. I have put these through bleach. I have also tried hydrogen peroxide on them with putting them out in sunlight, trying to get the plastic to whiten up. It just doesn't. It's just made of a yellow plastic, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. The solution I've come up with is some blue paper. This is a Roscoe Lux 3203, I believe, is what the number on it was. Pretty much the description of it is to bring light in the 3200 Kelvin range up to a 5500 Kelvin color temperature. So I'll show you the differences. I'll turn this light back off and drop this. All right. So it's, again, this might look slightly off in camera, but I promise you this is a warm white, maybe in the 4000 Kelvin range. It will not match the rest of the interior at all. Again, it may be tough to tell on camera, but the solution for me is right now is to use this blue paper, and as you can see, the color change when this is underneath it, it does turn into a white color. If I could find the aftermarket switch that whoever makes it makes these white completely just from factory where they're producing it at, I would use that, but that would require me to order about, I don't know, 5 or 6 aftermarket switches and try to figure out which one works, and you don't really get to return it once it's open. So a little bit of money spent for research, and you know, this is kind of what I've come up with. So this will be the solution for the factory switch, and I'll have to pretty much cut a shape and insert it down in there. So pretty much out of this paper, you just cut a small little square, insert it down in there, and that will sit and diffuse this light. That's going to shine through and help it turn it into a white light in the switch. So we'll do that, and we'll reassemble the switch and show the finished product. So here's the idea. You'll cut a small piece like this that fits just on the outside lip of the bottom of that switch. Grab something, tweezers, whatever, lay it in there flat. And this might take a little bit of work depending on how talented you are working down in this hole, and depending on the type of tweezers or whatever tool you might be using works. All right, so there you go. It just kind of, you know, sits over the hole where the LED will shine through, and then you'll take a little bit of hot glue and just dab it in the corners just to keep it secure. Why is this? Oh, I guess it helps if you turn it on to actually warm the gun up, huh? I learned from my mistakes though. So I decided to actually cut it a little bit bigger just in case it does move. Pretty much it's right against the edges now, and it's kind of being supported by this you know, circle here. So just try to get in the corner, throw a little bit of dab in there just so this doesn't fall when the switch is in the upright position. So here's a little test rig to show you the difference. Here is my switch now with that blue film inside of it, and my original switch, and the difference. So as you go over it, right, you got that. That's the original switch. You should be able to see that color a lot better than that previous little video or section of this video. So there's that off-white, and here it is in white. So essentially this is the design of it. I just pretty much have an LED rigged up, so the light will sit inside of it like so, and that's the illumination of it versus that. That should work out pretty well. I'll get the switch assembled and we'll go to the car, show the final product. The reassembly is actually pretty quick. You take this, slide it back inside here. It has these little kind of tabs that kind of give it a squeeze and hold it in place. You just push down on it like that, and it sits right in. The thing during the disassembly video you may have not have seen, and I may have not seen it initially either, is these springs here. They sit on these switches here to kind of help them spring back to the up position. So like so, you got to put those in first, and then place this inside with the long one facing the lock switch, and then you push it in, and there you go. We'll go to the car, plug it in, compare it to the rest of the interior, and this is done. Back in the car with the switch, I've plucked the wiring out from underneath the dash just to plug it in and show you kind of the comparison with the rest of the interior. So let me plug this in and turn the lights on. So the lights are on, and here it is, the switch compared to everything else. It no longer is that warm white, matches well here. Pretty much matches there. Everything matches. A camera might slightly blow this stuff out where it kind of doesn't look the right color, but this is a proper white, right around the 5,500 to 6,000 Kelvin range. So as got this routed back through, lights on, turn the lights on too. Everything works. That's that. Now that flickering is not actually happening. That's just the lens catching it. Camera lens flicker rate and the driver driving the LED. So yeah, to put this back in, you just slide it in there and give it a push. It just pops in and it's a done deal. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Got a few other things coming.